You were born in the year 1130, and for those times, congratulations are in order. You were born a boy. Your parents are ordinary laborers in the kingdom of Temeria. Your father works the land, and your mother is a homemaker. You don't have much money, but it's enough to cover all the essentials. You have a total of 6 brothers and sisters, and you were born the 7th. A lot of mouths to feed. Life is pretty tough physically, but otherwise it's fairly simple. But all of that is about to change, because a difficult fate awaits you. But to fully understand, let's go back to the past. A few years before you were born, your father was coming back from the city, where he went every day to sell his crops. Alone in the dark, he was riding his cart when suddenly something attacked him. A bony creature with flippers for feet, sharp claws, and webbing between its fingers. It had bulging, large eyes that looked in different directions, and its huge head resembled a football. In short, it was the Drowned One. Not the strongest monster, but deadly for an ordinary person. You'd probably think your father was done for, but he catches a glimpse of a figure behind the monster with glowing yellow eyes and pupils like a cat's. This stranger quickly closed in on the Drowned One, moving so skillfully and silently, and drawing one of his 2 swords, sliced the monster in half with a single blow. He was a witcher, a professional monster hunter. A life was saved. Lucky break, right? But what's the price of such a rescue? Father came back from town without selling a thing. The country is in crisis, and there's not just no extra money, there's no money at all. Seeing how much the father owes him for saving his life and how poor he is, the Witcher offers to let him repay his debt with the Law of Surprise. If you didn't know, the Law of Surprise is an ancient custom, a way to demand payment through destiny. The law states that the person who is saved must offer the rescuer a reward that is unknown to both parties. The words are simple: give me what you already have but don't yet know about. Overall, it sounds harmless. That's what the father thinks too, happily heading home, not suspecting what it really means. When he got home and told his wife everything, she, worried and in tears, was overjoyed because it would have been so hard for her to be alone, especially since, as it turns out, she's pregnant. And at that moment, the father's eyes freeze in horror because he realizes that he has promised his rescuer his own child. About 8 years passed, you grew up slowly, given your diet, played with the other kids, helped out with small chores, and lived in warmth and safety. And then one day, that same stranger shows up at your doorstep, staring intently at you. You don't understand what's going on, but your father recognizes him immediately. It's the very same Witcher who saved him. The Witcher immediately tells your father that he's come to claim what belongs to him. Your father stands there in horror while your mother hugs you crying. You can feel all the tension and are lost in confusion. And as the Witcher approaches you, he explains what happened and that you are his reward by the Law of Surprise. Your mother, fear in her eyes, lets you go. As much as she doesn't want to leave you, and as much as your father behind the Witcher doesn't want to grab a pitchfork, everyone understands the Law of Surprise cannot be broken, and refusing it isn't punished by a court or a king, but by fate itself. For that, death comes instantly, as if someone up above is just waiting for a chance to punish you. You don't want to leave, but the Witcher takes you by the hand, and together you leave your homeland behind. Your new mentor leads you north, toward the Blue Mountains. Everything familiar is left behind. Weeks on the road give him time to explain what your future holds. And this news is far from joyful. The world is overrun with creatures from other dimensions, and your job is to hunt them down and destroy them one by one throughout your unusually long life. If you live that long, of course. He teaches you how to read tracks, move silently through the forest, and, most importantly, stay alive when everyone around you wants you dead. Your path leads you to Kaer Morhen, an ancient stronghold in the Blue Mountains of Kaedwen, accessible only by a dangerous mountain road. The castle is awe-inspiring, until you realize that this will be your new cage for years to come. Crossing the inner courtyard, you notice about a dozen boys, ranging from 7 to 12 years old. Like you, some ended up here to pay off a debt, some were sold by desperate parents, and the rest are orphans with nowhere else to go. You also see older Witchers here, their bodies covered in scars and their eyes bearing that same empty stare. They will become your new teachers. Training begins immediately, and it pushes far beyond the limits of a child's endurance. They want to turn you into something like a budget version of Ashton Hall. You even have a similar daily routine. Every day, you wake up before dawn for physical exercises, run up mountain slopes with heavy backpacks, spar with wooden swords, practice moving silently, and build up your endurance. The Witcher instructors are cold and indifferent. If you mess up during training, you get a brutal beating. You're also taught to read and write, which is unusual since most peasants are illiterate. Witchers need to study bestiaries and contracts, understand alchemical recipes, and recognize mystical signs. You'll learn about the nature of monsters, finding out the differences between neckers and drowners, how to tell a bruxa from a higher vampire, and which oils and elixirs work best against specific creatures. As a witcher, you'll have to memorize hundreds of volumes to know how to track and destroy every type of monster. The training is merciless, and the other boys become your fellow sufferers. A shared dormitory, the same disgusting food, and identical harsh punishments for mistakes, which happen all the time. But that's not even the worst part. The hardest thing is realizing what's waiting for you ahead. You see, becoming a witcher involves two stages. The first is what I mentioned earlier, where you learn to read and write and physically prepare your body. And the second stage is the Trial of the Grasses, a deadly, inhuman, and downright brutal initiation ritual that either transforms you into a true witcher or sends you to the grave. When you turn 12, it's your turn. The Trial of the Grasses is a series of alchemical transformations that turn an ordinary person into a witcher. The process involves ingesting a combination of mutagenic substances, extracts from rare plants, and monster essence. These radically restructure your biology. The procedure is unbearably agonizing, with a survival rate of about 3 out of 10. Most who undergo the ritual don't survive it. Years of training, all with the knowledge that this is what awaits you. They take you down to the laboratory beneath the fortress, a cold stone room filled with alchemical equipment and tables with restraints. They strap you down and give you the first mutagen, a foul-tasting liquid that burns your insides as you swallow it. And within minutes, pain floods your body. It feels like your blood is boiling and your bones are cracking. You scream yourself hoarse, then lose consciousness from the agony. When you wake up, they give you the next mutagen, and the cycle repeats for days on end. Unfortunately, surviving the Trial of the Grasses isn't enough, because there's still another ritual ahead, the Trial of Dreams, or Transmutation. You receive special mutants that awaken and expand your senses beyond human limits. When you finally come to after the nightmare, everything is changed. Your eyes now have cat-like pupils, letting you see almost in total darkness. Your reflexes have reached a superhuman level. You can react faster than any ordinary mortal. Your strength increases, your bones become denser, and your metabolism transforms, allowing you to survive on meager rations and withstand toxins that would be deadly to ordinary people. Your emotions become dulled, not intentionally, but as a side effect. You still have feelings, but they're distant, controlled. You also become completely infertile, meaning it's impossible for you to have children, an irreversible result of the mutation. At the start of the trial, there were about 10 of you. Unfortunately, only 2 remained. But in return for the psychological trauma, you gained impressive mystical abilities. These powers are called signs. Basic combat magic, available to witchers with just the gesture of the hand. Igni lets you generate flames from your palms to strike your enemies. Quen forms a magical shield around your body. Ard is a telekinetic blast that knocks back enemies or blows open doors. Yurden lets you create mystical traps that slow down monsters. And finally, Acthi allows you to influence minds and calm aggressive creatures. Training continues for several more years. Even after surviving the rituals and mastering new abilities, you're still not considered a full-fledged witcher. Not yet. You still have to face the Trial of the Mountains or the Circle of Elements. As a final test, the survivors are sent on a dangerous journey, if you can even call it that. First, you have to swim across the icy lakes near Kaer Morhen, then sneak through caves with a sleeping Cyclops without waking him up, or he'll start fighting. After that, you climb Trollhead Mountain, battling vicious stone trolls to reach the Circle of Elements, where you activate your medallion to complete the trial. Honestly, after everything you've been through, it turned out to be not as hard as it sounds. Now you can be congratulated. You are officially considered a witcher. As a reward, you receive a horse, your school's traditional armor, and 2 swords, 1 silver and 1 steel. And finally, you can begin your own journey and head wherever you wish. Now, it's expected that you'll make your own way in the world, taking contracts to slay monsters for a reward. But there's a catch. People despise witchers. You see, witchers are mutants. On the outside, sure, you look human, but for the most part, your cat-like eyes and skin, pale as a corpse, kinda say you might be sick or even worse. And hardly anyone wants to talk to you. People feel extremely uncomfortable around you. They think you're unnatural and barely even human at all. Parents scare their kids with stories about witchers to make them behave, and priests of the Church of the Eternal Fire call you a freak. In some villages, you're simply driven out, while in others, you're accepted as the lesser or necessary evil because there's a bigger monster bothering the village more than you ever could. But here's your second lesson as a witcher. People are incredibly stingy, even though you're literally one of the few on the continent who can actually destroy all sorts of monsters. They'll haggle with you, driving the price down to almost nothing. Most people would rather risk their families than pay a fair price for the services of a professional monster slayer. In the end, you settle for half the original amount because you need at least some money to survive. And so, you get your first mission as a witcher. This is your starting point. To begin, you start searching for monster clues using your heightened senses and discover tracks that look like they belong to Neckers. You track them back to their lair and get ready for your first real fight as a professional. Neckers are about 1 meter tall, but with claws as sharp as blades and needle-like teeth that can tear anything apart. On their own, they're weaker than most monsters, but they're pack hunters who use underground tunnels to surround their prey. The fight begins, and the monsters turn out to be much faster than you expected. Their claws slice through your leather armor like parchment, and you have to use everything you've learned so far. You use poison, signs, and every sword technique you know until you finally kill the last Necker. And congratulations! You survived your first Witcher mission, barely making it out alive against some of the weakest monsters. But this is only the beginning of a long and grueling career. In the years that follow, you take contract after contract, learning that a Witcher's life is basically wandering, isolation, and trying to remember which book has the information on how to kill whatever's trying to eat you this week. You fight drowners, griffins, Striga, and all sorts of other monsters. Years go by, and you realize that the greatest challenge of being a Witcher is dealing with people. Not every monster contract is actually about a monster. Sometimes you arrive in a village to kill a beast, only to find an ordinary person cursed by magic. Or there isn't a monster at all. It's just a bunch of superstitious peasants looking for a scapegoat. You try to stay neutral, but it rarely works out the way you'd like. The years go by. 30, 40, 50. Witchers age slowly. The mutations greatly extend your life. Chances are you'll live for more than a century, unless something kills you first. But it's not as great as it sounds because everyone you care about ages normally. You'll never be able to build real relationships, especially when you're always wandering and away from home. Eventually, there comes a moment when you take on a contract that might be more than you can handle. They tell you about some Leshy that lives in the forest. You leave, and a day, 2, 3 go by. Eventually, the villagers send someone to check if everything worked out or not, and they find 2 bodies, one of the Leshy and the other yours. They take your swords and medallion to sell, and bury you in an unmarked grave, just relieved that the monster problem is solved. That's what it means to be a Witcher. They take you as a child, put you through training that's basically designed to kill you. You can't have a family, you can't settle down, and you can't run away from what you've become. You've lived a long life, but spent most of it alone, wounded, knowing that eventually some monster will be faster, stronger, or just plain luckier. And now that you're dead, no one will remember you. You'll just be that Witcher who died near the village, and people will be glad about it,